We live on, there we are. Let me go go over here and go live. Let's go live over here. There we are there. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. Top of the evening to you. Welcome to the Wednesday night midweek service here coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. Ava had to go to urgent care earlier today. Oh, it off. How about now? Can y'all hear me now? Hello. I'll let you know when I hear you. Evidently, they still don't hear me. I guess we turn it off. Oh, yep. She said yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's the mute button right there.
Okay. I had myself muted, y'all, for some reason. Anyway, welcome to the Wednesday night midweek service. We're going to have a little hour of prayer and have a testimony service. We're going to have Sister Betty to come around and sing a song or two. And Brother Eli is going to be bringing the word a little bit. Yeah, it messed me up. I had my little ear pod in. I forgot to take it off. Good evening, TikTok over there. Y'all come on in, set a spell. Come by and say hello. Thank y'all for the hearts already. And I'm just sitting here being silly this evening. Have me a hot cup of tea. It's supposed to get down to 26 tonight and 19 tomorrow night. So we're going to have, the next 4 or 5 days are going to be cold here in Atlanta. Ava went to, Rhonda says, how's Ava? Ava's back, but she hadn't felt good, and she went to urgent care earlier today. And she might have they gave her some antibiotics. She might have an infection of some sort, and not to tell her business, but it's just, she was hurting in her side, thinking maybe it was her gallbladder. And hey, y'all. Thank y'all for liking the live. Coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia this evening, everybody, on a cold Wednesday evening. We used to have midweek service start about 7:30 on a Wednesday night years ago. We call it the hump day. You know, people get just a little bit over the hump. So anyhow, good evening, Digits Mom. Thank y'all for the roses and the likes and the follows and the hearts and the tapping and so forth. We've got about 1,200 taps over on 1,300 over on TikTok right now. I'm drinking some slippery warm tea with a little bit of honey in it tonight. Made by the brand is Throat Coat, and so you can find it at Kroger and on Amazon or man, it's so good. A cup of hot tea when it's cold. I don't drink hot tea in the summertime. Rhonda said it's snowing too much up there. Said her friend flew into Heather said, Daddy spills all our tea. Heather says, I can't believe you got on, did your morning post and told them, said, well, what's a boarding pass. I didn't know I was supposed to have a boarding pass. Well, I just try to tell the truth. I ain't trying to put nobody down. But anyway, everybody, I'm trying to stay up. I went to bed last night at 8:30 and I woke up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, I have got to start staying up later, you know. But I mean, I sleep real hard, but I need to wait about at least 10 o'clock to go to sleep. You go to sleep at 8:30. I mean, that's a long night. But anyhow, good evening, everybody, over on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, coming to you from my little dining room with the Pelican right over my shoulder right here in East Point, Georgia. Saying hello to everybody and hoping everybody's staying warm and feeling okay. I know Ava, she's kind of run. I told her when I've had to take antibiotics, they tear my stomach up. They make you feel like you're tired. So a lot of my family, my two daughters, Jill and Heather, and my three grandkids, Caleb and Chance and Savannah, they're all up in New York City this week, school break. And so Jill's Savannah, she's 13, but she's always been fascinated with the ballet and ballerinas and all like that. So her and her mama are going to see a ballet tonight, Swan Lake at the Koch Center. So hey, it's okay to spill the tea. So they're all up in New York, and it's supposed to snow tomorrow. And then Heather's been up there spending all her rehab money. I mean, not rehab or house money. You know, I tell her, girl, you're just going through money like crazy. You know, it's fun to go shopping in New York, though. And yeah, you do spend a lot of money, but yeah, it's New York City. So what? You know, the way I look at a lot of that, when this life is over and you look back over your life, if you have that chance, you won't look back and say, man, I just wish I hadn't have spent that $1,000 that weekend in New York City. I mean, all that stuff just kind of like, yeah, whatever, you know. So how's everybody doing this evening? Is anything, I've been a little bit less on TikTok and social media because I've been having to work every day. While everybody's up in New York going to ballets and going shopping and yeah, we can't take it with us. You know, I tell people this all the time. You'll never, in a funeral procession, you'll see the casket in a hearse. You won't never see another hearse following it with all their money in the hearse. You can't take it with you. It is true. Well, if you have any money to spare. So yes, I'm working at the shop this week, and I'll be back on my regular routine next week when they all get back. Because Caleb works at the shop, Jill works at the shop, Neighbor works at the shop. But that tea's good, y'all. So anyway, just sitting here piddling, sitting here at the house, looking at pictures. I posted a couple of pictures a minute ago on my Facebook page. Some of you people over on TikTok want to find me over on Facebook at Eddie Williams Sellers, over on Instagram. And I posted 3 or 4 pictures of Savannah being at the ballet tonight. Oklahoma is in the Arctic Circle today, Betty says over on Facebook. Isabella Weber says, you know what? I'm in dire financial straits. Not my fault. Yeah. Denny Coleman says, hey, Eddie, it's Denny from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Well, hey, Denny. Digits Mom said, I'm going to go over and look at the pics on Facebook. White Bear Lake, Minnesota. That just sounds very rustic and beautiful, doesn't it? And as far as the other person who said she's in dire financial straits, you'll never get through this life without it going through that at some points in your life. You know, bankruptcy. My very first house I ever bought in Austell, Georgia, 1135 Pontiac Circle. I paid on it about 2 years, and then they repossessed it. I got behind on the payments. So Michael says, hey, Eddie from Marietta here. Hey, Michael. Diane says, hey, Eddie. Joe Harding says, hey, Eddie. Hey, all y'all. Good evening. Just sitting here having me a cup of tea. Bridget says, hey, Eddie. Good Wednesday meeting, everybody. We're about time to start the service tonight. We got a Wednesday midweek service going on. We're going to have singing. We're going to have testimony service. We're going to have preaching. We're going to pray for the sick. We're going to have a prayer line. Hey, Miss Sally. Good evening to you. Hello, Manny, in Richmond, Virginia. I live 9 miles from White Bear Lake. It's a beautiful area to live. Just the sound of that sounds so pretty, doesn't it? White Bear Lake. Yeah. In the Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, I believe it is. Sounds like church, don't it? Yeah. Well, you know what? 50 years ago, you could drive by just about any church on a Wednesday evening, and the church's parking lots would be full because people loved midweek service. Then they got where they did away with the midweek service, and then a decade or two down the road, they started doing away with the Sunday night service. The Sunday night services in Pentecostal holiness, maybe even Baptist churches, the Sunday night services were bigger than the Sunday morning Sunday school Sunday morning service. I mean, a lot of people come out on Sunday nights. Then it just died, and they just did away with Sunday night service. Are we all going to have a potluck? Wasn't potluck good? Yeah, people just bring a little bit of everything. Pass the plate around. Well, here's the modern day plate. Just put the Cash App on there. But if you really think about it, though, thank you there, Denny. Thank y'all for the gifts over there, for the 4,300 little likes over here. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for the taps, the likes, the follows. Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. Now, but if you really think about it, it started midweek services started going away, and then, you know, I remember back when people first started doing away, you have other preachers keep theirs going. They say, oh, people just falling away from God. They don't even love God enough to get up and go to the house of God on a Wednesday night. Now they start to, and then they'd close their midweek service. Then they'd say the same thing about Sunday night services. You know, oh, it's just people getting cold-hearted toward the Lord. And little by little, all the churches got rid of their Sunday night service. Now they just have a Sunday morning service. And Rhonda says the Pentecostal service scared me when everyone was speaking in tongues. I was shook. Yeah, it did. It really made a lot of people uncomfortable. And you know what's weird now? I didn't feel uncomfortable around it then. But if I went into one tonight and the people got up there and they started, it would make me feel a little weird. Like, I don't know about all this. You know, although I speak in tongues and I believe in the anointing and praying and all that, it's just kind of weird when it's, I don't know, there's something weird about it. It ain't weird when I do it. It's weird when other people do it. Isn't that awful? But anyhow, everybody, coming to you from Atlanta this evening. I have a call-in service every Sunday morning at 8:30. We started during COVID and have continued. Yeah. A lot of people are online doing services. To me personally, if I was going to participate in a church service, I do go in person to Metron, but it's not a church service. It's more of a meditation, teaching. What do they call it? Meditation, teaching, not self-help, but there's a name for it. But I like being in person because there was something powerful about where Jesus said where 2 or 3 are gathered. And that don't have to be about in his name per se. It can be at a ball game. It can be at a high school gymnasium. It can be at a political rally. It can be in a church. But where people are gathered together, there's a certain energy and a vibration to it that's different than sitting and watching something online. So I do like to and I understand the online. We back in my day, we did radio broadcasts for people that couldn't come to church. We'd have radio broadcasts that but we would say that was for the sick and the shut in, because they wasn't able to get out and go to. Mine is visual. It's more like a Bible study. There are about 10 of us. Yeah, that could be fun. That could be fun, Diane. So good evening, TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all you people out there this evening. Ava's already, she's laying in bed this evening. She just got a little infection or soreness and hurting in her side. So she just, it happens. And thank God she got back from Wilmington before she kind of felt under the weather and didn't start feeling bad while she was up there. It's a completely different view of your dining room over here on Facebook. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. That computer's here and the TikTok thing has the wall to one side. So different angles, different views. So, well, I see where Donald Trump has started to pick a fight with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. I told her, Diane, that I think by morning these antibiotics kick in, and probably by morning she'll start to feel better. So it looks like Donald Trump's picking and poking and trying to pick a fight. Him and J.D. Vance with Ukraine. They're already, can y'all believe this? They're already doing the devil's work. And by this, I say the devil's work, they're already picking Putin as their guy they're going to stand up for, and picking Putin as the guy they want to win the war, and picking Putin as the good guy in this war. And that Donald Trump said that it was Ukraine that started the war, even though it was Russia that invaded Ukraine. So it's just like we're living in a parallel universe. And Trump, MAGA people, they love it. They love it. If J.D. Vance stepped down as vice president and Donald Trump made Vladimir Putin the vice president of the United States, the MAGA people would just love it. Just love it. It's just weird to wrap your brain around that, isn't it? Just weird. It's just weird, y'all. But anyhow, y'all, appreciate y'all being here this evening and saying hello and coming by. And Katie says over here on Facebook, she said she sees where he called himself king today. He sent out a tweet with a picture of him on the cover of Newsweek, it was a photoshopped cover of him on Newsweek with the crown on, talking about King Trump. He loves all that. He loves having gold toilets and I guess he pisses gold. I don't know. Hey, Vanita. Hey, good evening to you there. KMK Mom 50 says Trump needs to be stopped. We are in trouble. I know. I don't know how we stop him. Rachel says hello from Charleston, South Carolina, the sister city to Savannah. Yeah, good evening there to you over in Charleston. So, and I'm telling you, MAGA wants to make him king. MAGA wants to make him king. And when I say MAGA, I just simply mean any one of the 77 million people that voted for him. They want him to be king. And they figured he probably, over this 4 years, would become king before all this settles down. Because democracy is hanging by a thread. I don't even know if we still have democracy in this country. And it's been going on for so many. TikTok's kind of filtering some of me right now. You have to be careful. They think I'm on here spewing hate. But really and truly, gerrymandering's been going on across the South for so many decades now. All these weird congressional districts, they gerrymandered up that it's almost like, man, do you really call that democracy when you weave and cut and paste people out of voting districts? And, I was hoping I'd wake up from this dream. I don't even know if we have a democracy in this country anymore. It's maybe, what would you call it? Oligarch. It's something to do with corporatization. I think we started down a hill when the Supreme Court ruled that corporations were people. and therefore they could give unlimited amounts of funds to political candidates. Elon Musk gave 250 million. Just let that sink in. Almost a quarter, not almost a quarter of $1 billion to Donald Trump in those months he ran for president. And it would have been illegal back before the Supreme Court, before we lost the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court would have stopped that because they would say, you're buying elections if you're doing that. But now they're like, no, he could give $1 billion to Donald Trump if he wanted to. And so I don't even know if you call what we have left a democracy. And, you know, for all the people out here, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but would you put it past? If somebody asked me, well, would you put it past Elon Musk and Donald Trump colluding to somehow steal the election? No, you wouldn't put it past them because you know they're crooked. They're crooked, evil men. They're crooked, evil people. And when their side thinks the election was about a handful of women in NCAA sports, Nurse Mama says we aren't even speaking the same language. So a corporatocracy, if I can say it right. There's something unseemly though about so boastfully saying we love Putin and shit on Zelensky, shit on the people of Ukraine, shit on all those people, because we, MAGA, we love Putin. We love 300,000 Ukrainians got bombed to smithereens by Putin, but MAGA says we love Putin. You know, Tucker Carlson went to Russia, interviewed Vladimir Putin like he was just some kind of great wonder, like he was the second coming of Christ. And it's really good evening, Miss Kathy Cole over on Facebook. I'm sitting here, y'all having me a little cup of coffee, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, in my little dining room in East Point, Georgia. So it is good evening, Bones, over on TikTok. So it is just kind of a head twister, isn't it? When you think about, not to mention the poisonings and Angeline. It's hard to wrap our brain around the fact that MAGA loves Russia. MAGA loves communism. MAGA loves democracy not working no more. The people, the 70-something million people that voted for Donald Trump, greatly despise people having the freedom to go out and vote. And they use the ruse that elections are unfair. The election was stolen. We heard that for 4 years. The election was stolen. The election was stolen. They didn't think their election was stolen, really. What they were doing, they were trying to destroy any trust in the elections because they do not want free and fair elections. They don't want gay people voting. They don't want people that's not white voting. They really despise the freedom to vote in this country. Because really and truly voting with today's technology, voting every single of age eligible voter in America could vote in 2 seconds with an iPhone. The food stamp people give out cell phones to all the people that don't even have a phone, where that they can have their phone to download their monthly food stamp amounts onto. They could do the same thing to voting. Could be it's so easy. But they knew if they open vote, MAGA knows this, that if it was real easy for everybody to vote, Donald Trump could never be elected, And TW says you're at 1,000%. So it's just living in a weird, twisted, parallel universe where that the MAGA people, I don't know. Do we have a democracy now? Do we? I don't know. I mean, we do in the city of Atlanta, like for a mayor's race. But when it comes to statewide voting, even here in Georgia, do you not think it's crooked that the state legislature, which is all Republicans, how they gerrymander they scientifically figured this out. How can we write these districts where we can shut out Democrats and minorities, shut them out as much as possible and make it just a bigger piece of pie for Republicans? Gerrymandering's been going on for a long time. And so who else immediately smiles when scrolling to this live? Yeah. So I don't know. It's like we're living in a parallel universe. And I'm going to tell you where it's going to get twisted. Now, here's the other thing. Let's say that Donald Trump doesn't care to be president after these 4 years. Legally, he's not supposed to be able to, but with MAGA will break all the rules and install him as a king for the next 20 years, if that's what Donald Trump decides he wants to do. But let's just say that Donald Trump decides, I'm going to be 85 years old. I'm done. Somebody else can do it. I've got myself out of prison. I've stopped myself from going to jail. I've stolen all that I can steal from the American people. I've got $1 billion sitting in a free fund over here. Ain't no telling how much money Saudi Arabia and some of the other countries. He's pocketing hundreds of millions of dollars in his back pocket, and there's nobody in Congress, the oversight to see that, to even question it. So let's just say he has nobody, he has no checks and no balances, and I'm telling y'all, he can do anything he wants to do. You watch Medicaid start to get done away with. You know what? If Donald Trump went in there, and they challenge it in the court, but he'd get enough Republicans to come along on his side, they'd cut out your Social Security check. Wouldn't be a damn thing nobody could do about it. Not a damn thing. And I don't know what it is about these oligarchs, that's millionaires and billionaires. Hey, Dora, why they're so against people getting a little $1,200, $1,300 retirement check. Oh, it just drives them crazy. I'm telling you, MAGA would love to cut out those Social Security checks. And when I say MAGA, I know that there's a lot of MAGA poor people that live off Social Security. They wouldn't care if Donald Trump told them, said, well, you just need to be a patriot and do it for the country. We're not going to send you no more Social Security check. They'd be like, well, I guess that's what Jesus wants. And we'll do what we have to do to make sure that Brandon Biden doesn't get no Social Security check. It's just the damnedest thing. It's hard to wrap your brain around some of this, isn't it? It's just the damnedest thing. The comments coming in over here says, absolutely, they cut off the path for working people, financial support, housing, education. Thank y'all for the gifts over here. We up to 10,000 now. It is, and y'all, I'm telling you, y'all might. I know this sounds crazy. I've always had the rule of thumb: if somebody ever tells you I'm not a crazy guy, they're probably a crazy guy. But even knowing that, I'm going to tell you I'm not a crazy guy. But I'm telling you, there's something sinister going on in the nation. There's something sinister going on, and Joe Harding said now there's about 80,000 in federal employees that are going to need to find jobs. It's kind of like, let me tell you this. If you wanted to bring the country down, if you remember this, when George W. was thinking about invading Iraq, Dick Cheney told him, said, if you break it, you own it. In other words, if you go in there and bomb Iraq to smithereens, you're going to have to own it. You're going to have to build it back. You're going to own it. Remember that. If Donald Trump wants to own the country, he first has to break it. And the way you break it is to collapse and destroy the economy. And then everything goes to shit. then he can become a dictator. He can take and cut out Social Security. He can do whatever he wants to because everybody is so traumatized from not having work, from not being able to pay their mortgage. Yeah. So if it almost, to me, there's something, the reason I keep saying there's something sinister feels like it's going on in the nation. It seems like the Trump and the Trump group around him, they want to break the country. Why else would they go in here and be letting these thousands and tens of thousands of employees just go? I was seeing on a local WSB TV channel here in Atlanta, where local veterans got their email sent to them. Local veterans that work for the VA's hospital. The people, they were talking about they voted for Donald Trump, and they're like, one of them says, "Man, we got screwed in this deal. He fired all of us." I mean, thousands of VA people. When the VA says it's so understaffed and why would he do that? They fired so many people over at the CDC in Decatur, and they didn't even know what they were doing. They fired the ones that were working on the bird flu pandemic that they predict could be coming if it gets spread through humans. Why would they fire people that was working on trying to prevent a pandemic? The only thing I know is they're trying to just make the country implode, just bring it to its knees, and then just have it such chaos and dysfunction that elections really don't matter no more. The country is so screwed up. So he's the king of the toilet. Yeah, Doris said. Hey, Miss Ava. I told everybody you wasn't feeling good tonight. Oh. I'm going to be on here a few more minutes. I'm just getting it all out, and then I'm going to finish my tea, and I'm going to come and see what we're going to. Miss Dora says, "Hey, Ava."
Hello, Miss Dora.
Ava don't like showing her face when she ain't all prettified.
I'm not feeling all that.
She's not feeling well, and she ain't got no, how did that girl say?
Lipstick.
Huh?
Lipstick.
She ain't got no lipstick on. Some little girl on YouTube got famous. She, instead of saying lipstick, she said, "Lipstick. How's my lipstick look?" The dogs are going crazy. The dogs are going crazy. So anyway, y'all, good evening, everybody. He said he was king today on Truth Social. He did say that, didn't he, fellowship? Speaking of fellowship, come on into the Wednesday night Bible study here. We talking about King Trump. Y'all remember when they took Donald Trump up on Calvary's hill, and they nailed poor Donald Trump to the cross? They put drove the stakes, and they put a crown of thorns up on Donald Trump's head. And they told Donald Trump, said, "You saved others, why can't you save yourself?" If you didn't know about it, you think MAGA had made him Christ, that he's become their savior, isn't that? Yeah, it's kind of like, Donald Trump has forgiven them of their sins. Donald Trump, as King Jesus, he took all those people from January the 6th that did all those atrocities and just beat people with flagpoles and just injured police officers. He pardoned all their sins. He said, "Come unto me, all you January the 6th people that are heavy laden and burdened. I've signed a decree. I forgive you of everything." Yeah, MAGA's weird, ain't they? They weird. I think she'll be fine by morning, Allie. USA feels like it's already fallen. It does feel like that. Let's go hammy, doesn't it? They will never see Trump as anything other than a saint, and like I see him, it's like a grown, old, overweight man that's shit in his britches, and he's walking around with a big old diaper that's got shit in it. That's the way I see him. He's just, he's just disgusting to me.
He's got Dookie in his hand.
He's got Dookie in his hand. He's disgusting on every level. On every level, he's a liar. He's a cheat. He's two-faced. You could just go down the list of everything you could think of that would be somebody who is not a good person. And as you're sketching that out with the pen and marker, as you do it, little by little, more and more, the face of Donald Trump just starts coming into focus. Like, oh, it was him all along, wasn't it? So, yeah, y'all, I'm having fun here. If you don't like it, poop on you. Trump is just ushering in the Antichrist Musk. And isn't Elon Musk, isn't he weird? Ever since I seen him do the Hitler thing, I swear, every one of them in that administration, all I see is a bunch of Nazis. Good Lord. And I'm such a history buff, and I've seen every documentary you can think of about that era. And every time I see one of them, all I think is 1939 and when it got started in Germany and how it fled across Europe. And I'm like, my God, here we are in America now, and every one of them look like Nazis to me. Good Lord. And doing the, you know, and even back in Charlottesville, when Trump's talking about the Nazis, he said, well, they're good people. They're good people on both sides. I'm like, what? Yes, y'all, it's weird. It's totally weird. So what I think also. So, but anyhow, I did a little video. On TikTok because I was at work, and I remember I'll maybe talk about this for a minute, and then I'll finish my tea and call it a night. My best friend most of my life was Sammy Brewer, and I changed his diaper when he was a baby. I knew his mom and daddy. We all lived together when I was like 12 years old, because I was 12 when Sammy was born. And so I remember Sammy as a boy. So I knew Sammy like family my whole life. So, but anyhow, when he was like 17 to 18, Sammy, when he was young, the election is in Germany on February 28th, are going to be a big tale. Yeah. You know, and yes, it is, Joe. The good evening TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. How's everybody doing this evening? Thank y'all for the clicks, the hearts, the likes, the follows. Come on over and join me on Facebook. Facebook's my more personal space that I do. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky and stuff. But yeah, I post stuff on them every day, but I don't really engage with them too much. But TikTok is where I get my checks every month when there is a check. I still got a little check this month. And YouTube, Facebook is more personal. You know, I block and delete people on Facebook. I'm not going to have a bunch of foolishness on there. You can do all the foolishness you want over on TikTok because I'm getting paid for your foolishness. But anyhow, my friend Sammy, he passed 3 or 4 years ago. But he went to my church. I started pastoring a church, and Sammy went to church there for several years. And but he told me one time when he was about 18, you know, so that would have put me at 30 because I was 12 years older than him. And he told me, he said, Eddie said, because he said, and we went to a Pentecostal church, holiness, Pentecostal, apostolic. People shout, people play tambourines, they clap, had tent revivals, people spoke in tongues, prayed over the sick, all that kind of stuff. And well, Sammy was probably one of the smartest people I ever knew in my life. He was very intelligent, very smart, and and I don't say this with any malice, and I know this is going to come out weird before I even say it, but it's hard for very intellectual, enlightened people to continue to be fit inside a dogmatic religion that's real limited, like Pentecostal, Church of God, Assembly of God. You kind of have to dumb yourself down to sit there year after year and be a part of that. And even though you can dumb yourself down to kind of fit in and go with the flow, over time, the brilliance of your brain starts to break through it. And like, I just can't do. You know, when people ask me, said, I had a lot of people ask me when I did a video on TikTok about why I no longer identify myself as a Christian. And I gave like a little 2-3-part, 10-minute things on TikTok about why I just reached the point I don't no longer feel comfortable saying to people, yeah, I'm a Christian. I'm like, no, I don't have to do that. it's not important for me for other people to think I'm a Christian. And, but with Sammy in that kind of doctrine, Sammy is a very brilliant, thinking person. And so he came to me. We were just talking one time, and he said, "Eddie, I want to ask you something." He said, "Yeah, there's people, sitting in church and they're supposed to have all this joy. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Rejoice always. I say always rejoice, and talk about joy and the joy of the Lord." He said, "Really and truly, most of them people sitting in the congregation, they look so drab and depressed." So the only time they ever seem like they have any kind of happiness is when they're speaking in tongues or jumping up and down. So once they sit back down, they just stare off like they just had the whole inside sucked out of them. So just a bunch of depressed people, you can feel it. And when he told me that, that just did a number on me. I'm like, because when somebody says something to you that's true, you already know it's true because it just really resonates with you. I'm like, good Lord, he's true. I didn't have an answer for him. I said, well, they're fighting the devil. Back then I believed in a Satan and, we under spiritual warfare and all like that. All that stuff silly now. Silly. I outgrew all that stuff. I'm my own devil. That's all me, but anyhow, there was a disconnect with it. People's like, "Oh, the joy of the Lord is my strength." The joy, and yet they'd be very depressed and sad. So this morning when I did my morning post, thank y'all for the hearts over there and the follows and the likes. Good evening, TikTok, coming to you from Atlanta this evening. So when I did my morning post this morning, and when I do my morning post, when I sit down, I never have no idea what first word I'm going to write. But once I write a first word, then it just kind of whatever comes out, comes out. It's not premeditated. I don't lay there when I wake up in the bed thinking about what I'm going to write. Writing is off the table until I get my cup of coffee, get sat down, get the fire turned on, and then I open my laptop and I just start. And this morning I said that we're going to have a joyless next few years under Trump. Joyless. And then I got to thinking about what Sammy said. Eddie, why is these people supposed to be so filled with joy and happy, but they seem so depressed sitting there with their long sleeves and their no makeup, and the women with their buns of hair and won't cut their hair, and they staying with back then. I don't know about apostolic holiness churches now, women back then come through the prayer line, their husband be beating them. Preachers like, well, you're supposed to submit to your husband. Why is he beating you? Like it was her fault. It's just very oppressed and depressed kind of religion, and backwards. And so I thought about this in this context. If you look at Trump and the MAGA people now, it's very similar to Trump being a Pentecostal preacher that's not in it for the right reasons. Have y'all known preachers like that? A Pentecostal preacher that's sleeping with parts of the congregation, or worse, pretending to be something he's not, and all the people in the congregation falling right in line to support him. That's what MAGA is. And I started wondering about this. They won the election. They have the Supreme Court in the palm of their hand. They have control of Congress. They have control of the courts. They have control of the Senate. Yet, they're not happy. It's just like that Sammy saying about the Pentecostal crowd, and they're not happy. Can y'all picture that even Tom Hanks did a little Saturday night skit about MAGA being a racist? If you don't want to be called a racist and identified with the racist, don't be in a party that welcomes and supports racism. So if you're MAGA and somebody calls you a bigot or a racist, don't get upset about it. I mean, that's the party you're a part of. So it goes with the territory, Somebody's like, yeah, but you know what, Eddie, we're not all that. Well, just don't be a part of it. Now, to me, it would be something for me to go and join the KKK and be a part of the KKK. And then people say, oh, you're part of the KKK. And I'd be like, well, just because I go to KKK don't mean I'm a KKK. All that stuff's stupid. I mean, good Lord. So anyhow, I just thought about this in the context that Trump is like an old Pentecostal preacher who's preaching for the wrong reasons, doing the bad stuff in the church. And MAGA is like the crowd of congregation that is joyless. They're not happy. They've won everything, and yet they're miserable. Yeah, you'll get them on TikTok. Say, oh, no, I love Trump. It's the best thing ever happened to America. I love Trump and all like that. You talk to them 5 minutes, they'll cuss you out and call you everything but a white man. They so angry and bitter and upset, just like them people sitting in the congregation that Sammy talked about. So anyhow, thank you for sharing your method. I've always wondered how you do that each day. It is kind of weird. Well, I tell you, Katie O'Hara with writing. I tell you how I started doing that. I'd done it a little bit along the way, but when I was 50 years old, I was devastated and I wasn't well, and I went to the doctor and I tested positive for HIV. And I was really struggling with that. This is how my writing every day came into being for me. I don't think you become a writer. I think you're born a writer. I think you're born an artist. There's just times in life where parts of you open up that was always there. So anyhow, when I was 50, I tested positive for HIV. Well, I was devastated. And now it's pretty, back then it was a life sentence. So the day that I tested positive for HIV, I left the doctor's office, and already on the way home, I had a realtor. I called my realtor and I said, well, I didn't tell her I tested positive. I said, my house in Grant Park, which is a real hot neighborhood. I said, I want to put my house up for sale because immediately I'm thinking I'm going to die. And I don't want to leave my house and stuff for my kids to take care of. I've been to so many funerals. I had done so many funerals where people just left their family in a mess, trying to figure out no will, what goes where, fussing, arguing. I did so many funerals where one side of the family had to sit on this side, one had to sit on that side. They wasn't speaking to each other. I'm like, I just want to sell my house, sell my stuff, get ready to die, leave my family a clean slate. So I was pretty devastated by that. So I went and talked to a therapist in the weeks after that. First off, I called my friend John. John called me for 2 days. I wouldn't answer the phone. I would just shut myself off. So after a couple of days, my friend John, people that follow me know that John was my best friend and Sammy was my best friend. We was like the three amigos. We traveled the world. We went to New York City. We went to Costa Rica. Me and Sammy to Santiago, Chile, Puerto Rico. The three of us, we traveled. We had fun. We had good lives together. John lived on the other side of the park from me. And so I didn't answer the phone for a couple of days. And I finally answered the phone. John's like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. If you, I'm about to, I said, John, and I told John that John was the only person I told. I said, I tested positive for HIV. John said, I'll be there in 2 minutes. So John come over to my house, and for whatever reason, I hadn't, my not master, but the main bedroom, I know you get away from that master word, my main bedroom, I hadn't slept in it. I slept in the guest bedroom because it had a back door going out into the garden in the back of that. I just wanted the door open, and I lay on that back bed. And I remember John was so sweet that he didn't try to talk to me. I was laying on the side of the bed, and after 2 days, I was still crying. I couldn't quit crying. I just didn't want to die. And John was so sweet that he just laid on the other side of the bed. He never talked to me. And every once in a while, I'd cry a little bit, and John would be like, it'll get better. That's all he would say. Eddie, it'll get better. And he spent the night with me and stayed with me, and kind of, I was ready for him to go home. But anyhow, it's a long story to get to about my writing in the morning. I might have already been going to a therapist because I've always loved therapists. I ain't went to one now in 10, 15 years. But back then, I went through divorce. I changed my job after 27 years. I stepped away from a church that I pastored for 17 years. A lot of change in my life. So I went to a therapist every week. And so during this time, I was going to therapy, and my therapist said, what you should do, you should just write every day how you're feeling, And actually, I could go get the thing. Oh, excuse me right here. Hold on just a minute. All right, I'm back, y'all. Now that I'm talking about this is the book right here. And so my therapist said you should write every day how you're feeling. If y'all see this book right here. So June 10th, 2005. It's a Friday. Listen to what I wrote. Today, I tested positive for the HIV virus. I was sad all night, left work early and didn't go back. Felt really, really sad. I tested positive yesterday. I can't even read some of my script. Kathy came over after work and made me feel better. I talked to John for a long time. Life goes on. My heart is doing great. Getting over the something. Then I put on here, life goes on. June the 11th, Saturday, went to work this morning. Woke up feeling sick, kind of hopeless. Wish I hadn't tested positive. Went to work, tried to tell somebody else, I don't want to say their name. I couldn't get the words out. After work, Kathy, Jill, and I went to Target and went shopping. Told Tommy tonight. He cried and comforted me. So anyhow, to answer your question, that's how my writing started. 2005, every day my therapist said, just write down how you're feeling. So I never stopped. So basically, my morning post, what I call my morning post, it's just my therapy that never ended. Write what you're feeling. And that's what I do. If I wake up and I'm like, it's cold and miserable on this Monday morning, that's what I'm feeling. If I write that Donald Trump is a freaking dipshit piece of asshole, that's what I'm feeling. I'm still just writing what I'm feeling. I did get a haircut the other day, Joe. So a couple of people on Facebook says, well, I love your writing because you're an emotional writer. I am emotional. If I can't feel it here, I can't fictionalize it or make it up. You know, I'm very passionate about politics. I'm very passionate about religion. And when I say passionate, I don't mean I love religion. I'm just passionate about the power of religion and how the effects it has on people. It has effects of turning people against each other. And I'm passionate about life. You know, just in general, I'm passionate about a good pan of cornbread. Joe Duffo says, I love your writing because it is so descriptive. Yeah. And so when I'm writing, I'm going to mention that was a black lady that came into the shop today or a Korean man that I talked to at the, very descriptive. People's like, well, you don't, you know, that can be a little funny in today's time. No, that's what I'm feeling, you know. So yeah, so it's my morning writing is my therapy. It's very cathartic to me. Hey, Mr. Anthony, thank you there. But it's maybe you know, at the end of my life, if they had to list the things in life that brought me joy, real up there, real close to the top of it is going to be writing. I love writing. up there. That's just one of the things that never leaves you. It goes with you to it's like Jesus. It goes with you to New York. It goes with you to Paris. It goes with you to Fayetteville, Georgia, wherever you ask your writings, right there with you. You just find a little corner and a cup of coffee somewhere and just go to town. I love it. So anyhow, Katie says, what a gift to find you on TikTok. Someone I normally never know, but guess what? You make a difference in my life every day, every single day. I'd love to meet you one day. We'll come find you in Atlanta when I get there. I hope so, Katie. I hope so. And I've had to me, and I've said this before, people online are my blessings. Blessings come to you in all shapes, forms, sizes, whether a French bulldog or a family that drove down from some place in Tennessee that their 3 kids had never met a Democrat. And they come to the shop, and the sweetest man and woman said, introduced their kids to me and said, this is a Democrat. Because the little town they lived in, they had no Democrats that they ever knew of. And so what a blessing. What a blessing. I can just see them kids as they get grown. They say, y'all remember that time we went by Atlanta and we met a Democrat? Isn't that crazy? Anyhow, I love y'all. I'm going to get off of here, y'all. Good night.